The president is also working on this potential proposal to send out checks of $2,000. What's your expectation, Secretary? A standalone $2,000 check program to go out.
And so one of the ways to prove to the American people how great tariffs are is to have them share in a part of 1 year's income from these tariffs. And that's $2,000 a head. And that's exciting. So the president's got that on his desk, and his legislative team will figure out the best way to do it is coming next year from the president.
Early this morning, President Donald Trump doubling down on tariffs, and U.S. Commerce Secretary saying he is going to get you those $2,000 checks. Now, take a look. This coming out at 4:38 a.m., November 24th, 2025. It says, despite the massive amount of money that is being poured into the United States, hundreds of billions of dollars, as a direct result of tariffs that are being charged to other countries, the full benefits of the tariffs have not yet been calculated. Now, he also says that the amount payable to the U.S. will skyrocket over and above the already historic levels of dollars received. These payments will be record-setting and put our nation in a new unprecedented course. Now, take a look at the headlines coming out. Lutnick expects the Supreme Court will side with Donald Trump on the tariffs, opening the door for $2,000 payments. I'm going to play for you the full video clip so you can see it for yourself. And in addition to that, we're also hearing that the White House is preparing a backup plan before the Supreme Court's verdict, as Trump says revenue will skyrocket just in case they don't side with him. We're hearing that there is a backup plan being set. And meanwhile, I shared with you already that stimulus check update. Andrew Yang says Democrats should back Donald Trump's plan for $2,000 checks. We're hearing Democrats are getting on board. But take a look at this coming out. Senate Republicans say we can't afford $2,000 tariff checks. We have Republicans saying we can't do it. Democrats siding with Trump saying we can. Yet at the same time, take a look at this. The White House is looking for a way to issue tariff checks without Congress just saying Republicans, Democrats, forget them all. Let's see if there's a way to send out $2,000 checks to the American people without Congress. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you like this, put yes. If you think no, put no. But we're going to see where we go from here. But in the last couple of hours, early this morning, we saw Donald Trump doubling down on tariff checks. So I'm going to share with you the latest video footage and articles so that way you can see it for yourself. As you know, I cite all the sources. They're going to be hyperlinked in the description. Play the video footage, put the articles on the screen, read right from it so you can see. No, rest assured, this is the latest. You'll see where they're coming from and the dates. Now, if you appreciate that, take a quick second, hit the thumbs up like button for me. Help spread this out further on YouTube. And to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the video footage so that way you can see it for yourself.
The president is also working on this potential proposal to send out checks of $2,000, dividend checks. And, you know, there's an analyst I spoke with over the weekend who believes that it's unlikely unless we see a second reconciliation package passed in 2026. What's your expectation, Secretary, in terms of a second reconciliation bill or a standalone $2,000 check program to go out?
Look, the tariffs are an American policy. The president wants the American people to understand how great tariffs are for them. And so one of the ways to prove to the American people how great tariffs are is to have them share in a part of 1 year's income from these tariffs. And that's $2,000 a head, as he said, for people who need the money. You know, he's going to constrain it to people who need the money. And that's exciting. So the president's got that on his desk. I know that's something he wants to achieve, and his legislative team will figure out the best way to do it. But what he's trying to do is make sure people in America understand that tariffs are their policy. It's to make America stronger, and it could also benefit their pocketbook, and that is coming next year from the president.
Yeah, for sure. But the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says that those payments will cost roughly $600 billion each round and increase the deficit by $6 trillion over a decade. The White House preparing, of course, backup plans in case the Supreme Court rules against the president and the emergency powers on tariffs.
So there you have it, you guys. Now, again, that was this morning, November the 24th. And let's take a look what the president actually had to say this morning and some articles coming out on this. Now, he said, despite the massive amounts of money that are being made by the United States of America, hundreds of billions of dollars as a direct result of tariffs being charged on other countries, the full benefit of the tariffs have not yet been calculated in that many of the buyers of goods and products. In order to avoid paying tariffs in the short term, stock up by purchasing far more inventory than they can use. Now, that heavy inventory purchase is now, however, wearing thin, and soon tariffs will be paid on everything they apply to without avoidance, and the amounts payable to the USA will skyrocket over and above the already historic levels of dollars received. These payments will be record-setting and put our nation on a new and unprecedented course. We are already the hottest country anywhere in the world, but this tariff power will bring American national security and wealth, likes of which have never been seen before. Those opposing us are serving hostile foreign interests that are not aligned with the success, safety, and prosperity of the USA. They couldn't care less about us. I look so much forward to the United States Supreme Court's decision on this urgent and time-sensitive matter, so that way we can continue in an uninterrupted manner to make America great again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So there you have it, you guys. That was the president's response this morning to everything that's going on. And take a look. We just saw that interview with Mr. Lutnick, who expects the Supreme Court will side with Trump on tariffs, opening the door to $2,000 payments. Let's take a look at this article coming out this morning. Tariffs are going to be a part of this administration's national security and national economic protection of the American people, Lutnick told Fox Business's Maria on Mornings with Maria. We are going to win the case. It's pretty clear, he said, adding that he attended the oral arguments at the Supreme Court. When asked what options the president has if the court rules against the administration, Lutnick said President Donald Trump has all sorts of policies and tools available, referencing provisions in the U.S. trade law such as Section 232, 301, and 338, which allow the government to impose tariffs or other restrictions in the name of national security or to counter unfair trade practices. Lutnick, speaking from Brussels, where he was meeting with European lawmakers to discuss Trump's trade policies, said the administration views tariffs as a cornerstone of its economic agenda and a way to deliver tangible benefits to Americans. One of the ways to prove to the American people how great tariffs are is to have them share in part of 1 year's income from these tariffs, and that's $2,000 a head for people who need the money, he said. Trump first floated the idea of issuing $2,000 dividends from tariff revenue to low and middle income Americans on November 9th. He has since suggested that any remaining funds generated by tariff collections could be used to help pay down the nation's staggering $38 trillion in debt. Trump has also estimated that Americans could see these payments in mid-2026. Since Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs in April, tariff revenues have climbed sharply from $23.9 billion in May to $28 billion in June and $29 billion in July. Now, total duty revenue reached $215.2 billion in fiscal year 2025, which ended September 30th, according to the Treasury Department's Customs and Certain Excise Tax reports. And here you can see U.S. tariff revenue under Biden and under Trump. And here you can see Biden in December of 2024, around $8 billion. And then you can see Trump here, September, $31 billion. So far, the fiscal year 2026, which began on October 1st, the U.S. has collected about $40 billion, according to the latest numbers published by the Treasury Department. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer dismissed on Sunday concerns that issuing a one-time payment of $2,000 to some Americans will fuel inflation. This is not some kind of ongoing new welfare program or something that would exasperate inflation, Greer told Fox and Friends Weekend. He added that while he expects American families to welcome the checks, he doesn't see the payments as changing the nation's overall macroeconomic picture. So there you have it, you guys. They say they believe the Supreme Court will be on board. They won't have an issue there, and that they are going to get these checks out, and that they don't think it's going to be an issue to just send these out to the American people to help them see the benefits of tariffs. Let me know your thoughts. But take a look, just in case, we're hearing that there could be backup plans. Now, the White House is quietly preparing a backup plan for President Trump's tariffs, as the U.S. Supreme Court is set to decide whether he had the authority to issue them in the first place. Bloomberg reports that the Commerce Department of the Office of the U.S. Trade Representatives have considered alternative plans in the event that the court rules against the administration. The replacement plans, which may face their own legal challenges, are a sign the White House is getting ready behind the scenes for SCOTUS to rule against the tariffs, even as the president remains optimistic publicly. Trump on Monday claimed the full benefit of tariff policies would take effect soon, arguing that foreign buyers who stockpile inventory would be forced to buy more goods. Tariffs will be paid on everything they apply to, without avoidance, and the amounts payable to the USA will skyrocket, Trump wrote. The president invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to levy blanket tariffs on goods from other countries. But Congress is the branch of the U.S. government with oversight of taxation and spending, not the president. It's not clear when SCOTUS will make its ruling. Now, meanwhile, Trump further expanded tariff breaks on Brazilian goods, part of a move to lower costs on some everyday goods as consumers grapple with price struggles. The move came a week after he signed a similar order, more broadly reducing tariffs on goods including beef, tomatoes, coffee, and bananas. Now, the push to reduce food prices comes after electoral wins for Democrats across a number of key states and local races where candidates stressed affordability concerns. Trump has also, in recent weeks, floated the possibility of a tariff dividend for many Americans in the form of a $2,000 check. Trump recently acknowledged that U.S. consumers are paying something for his tariffs. And take a look at this. We're hearing that there are actually Democratic members of Congress that are on board with Trump's tariffs. Take a look. Andrew Yang says Democrats should back Trump's plan, as he says anybody that is saying they want to help the American people, we should support that. Let me know your thoughts. Former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang endorsed President Donald Trump's plan to send money directly to Americans, saying that Democrats should get on board with the proposal. Democrats, in theory, should be all for anything that helps the working class of this country, Yang said during an interview with Fox News on Saturday. Here's why it matters: because Trump continues to wrangle with economic issues almost a full year into his second administration, with fluctuating job numbers and inflation still high enough to impact households. Now, to deal with those issues, Trump has suggested sending money directly to Americans, first as a dividend payment for all the money that he says the U.S. has made on tariffs, and then as an alternative to passing Democrat-backed health care subsidies, which Trump said simply goes into the pockets of health insurance companies and would be better off in the hands of Americans. The White House has also created a website that allows consumers to purchase prescription drugs directly rather than go through insurance, starting January 26. And reports coming out like this today: we can't afford a $2,000 tariff check, says Senate Republicans. Republican Senator Ron Johnson, a leading fiscal hawk in the U.S. Senate, says that the country can't afford President Trump's proposal to send out $2,000 tariff dividend checks to working class Americans to help them afford higher living expenses. Look, we can't afford it. I wish we were in a position to return the American public their money, but we're not, Johnson said. We'll have at least a $2 trillion deficit this year, Johnson warned, comparing the staggering national deficit projected for 2025 to smaller deficits under the former President Obama and during Trump's first term. President Trump had deficits about $800 billion. Obama, in his last 4 years, $550 billion a year. Now we're $2 trillion? Completely unacceptable. We have to start focusing on that and doing something about it, Johnson said. Trump has proposed paying out $2,000 tariff dividend checks to millions of Americans and funding it with the hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue projected to enter federal coffers because of higher tariffs. But the budget experts project that the inflow of new tariff revenue won't be enough to cover the costs of doling out $2,000 checks, which could cost $600 billion a year, according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan group that studies fiscal issues. The Treasury Department estimated in July that it could collect $300 billion this year from higher tariff rates, and that the Congressional Budget Office estimated the federal government could collect about $2.8 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. Now, distributing $2,000 tariff rebates to millions of Americans could cost approximately $6 trillion over the course of the next 10 years if those checks are sent out on an annual basis. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said earlier this month that the administration would limit those payments to people making below a certain amount in annual income. Trump said that the checks would go to individuals of moderate income, likely in the middle of next year. Congress would need to pass legislation to authorize those payments. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told reporters last week that he would like to see the increased tariff revenue used to reduce the deficit. The amount of revenue coming in from the tariffs is considered to be substantial at this point and hopefully can be put to a useful purpose. In my view, one of which would be repaying the debt. Now, the Congressional Budget Office last month projected the federal deficit would hit $1.8 trillion for 2025. So there you have it, you guys. We're hearing Republicans, Democrats, they've got differing views on what to do about these $2,000 checks. And right now we're also hearing the White House is trying to see if they can do it completely without them. White House looking to issue tariff checks without Congress. Now, take a look. Deputy White House Chief of Staff James Blair said the administration is eyeing ways to give millions of Americans $2,000 dividend checks from tariff revenue without congressional approval. Now, Blair said that the White House will look as hard as possible to see if that they can issue these dividend checks without Capitol Hill approval, but also express some skepticism. We will look as hard as possible to see if there's a way to do it without Congress because we're circumspect about Congress wanting to stop them. Blair said at a Bloomberg government event on Tuesday, "The law is the law. I think the most likely outcome will require an act of Congress. But we will see, and I will keep you guys up to date." And we're hearing that as of today, Trump is doubling down, saying you're going to get a check. Now, whether this comes out or not, I'll be sure to let you know here on the channel. So stay tuned, subscribe, hit that like button if you appreciate the updates. And as more comes out, I'll be sure to let you know right away. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.